This is a product data fetcher for Google Sheets. And what this does is it will automatically pull certain product data from hundreds of different suppliers into your Google Sheet once you provide a list of product URLs. The data that it pulls is the title, image, price, shipping, stock, which is either 0 or 1 for out of stock or in stock, and also the lead time, the number of days until the product will ship from that supplier. It also will give you the date time stamp when you actually pull this data, so that way you know how recently your data was pulled, or how recent your data is. Now the setup process for this is quite simple, and actually what I'm going to do is actually stop the current running process. And so to do that, right now it's fetching, so I'm going to do is just click on cancel. But I did want to start off with you seeing it actually do that process. Now, one thing I'm going to do for column A, and you don't really have to do this, is I'm going to select column A and put the format wrapping to wrap, just so that you can see the images a bit better. And I'm going to make this column smaller so that the rows are taller and you can actually see the product images. All right, so that's just optional. Now, the setup process is quite simple. You will, first of all, you will add a script ID and some code, which I will give you, to your app script editor. You will then enter your user ID on set user, which you will have to tell me what you want your user ID to be. You will then set the columns. So let me actually I'd like to actually show you that process. And setting columns means you're going to tell it where you want things to go. So for one, on which row number are your headings, meaning your column headings. URL, title, image, these words up top. Well, that would be row 1. This number is your row number. So you type 1 and click OK. It's then going to ask you which column, which is a letter, contains your source URLs. Well, that would be column A, for instance. It can be lower or uppercase A, doesn't matter. Which column letter will store your product title? So that's going to be B. And by the way, it doesn't have to be in the order that I have it. This is just for this example. Which column letter will store the images? Well, that's going to be C. Which column letter will contain prices? That's column D. And again, if you wanted to have prices in J, you could put your price column in J and then you'd put J here. All right, it's really whatever arrangement you want. Which column letter will contain the shipping charge? That's column E. Stock is F. Mine is in order, in the same order as the questions, so it's very easy in this case. I'll just put G for the lead time, and then for which column letter will store the time the product data was updated, that's going to be H. All right, so that's quite simple. Now, that way the data fetcher knows where the data should go. Now, to do a proper demonstration, what I'm going to do is go back to the product data fetcher menu. There are a lot of options here, a lot more than in the trial version. And for one, you could pretty much operate this whole thing with the first 2 sections if you're doing, just the basic use of the fetcher. But I will explain the other parts as well. But first of all, you can clear the data. I'm going to actually clear all the fetch data. And that will clear just the columns that I just typed in. These data columns that I just set, they're all going to get deleted. If you add your own, if you have your own extra columns like notes, those are not going to get deleted. So it's not going to clear those. It's only going to clear the ones that you set. All right. And you might not have to use that at all. Now, the first way we can get the product data is fetch this product. If you click on fetch this product, it will only fetch the row that you are currently on. So if you click on fetch this product, it will only fetch the current row, just one product. But if you want to keep fetching from a certain point, you click on start fetching list. Start fetching list will start on the current row wherever I am, and it will keep moving down automatically. So it will start fetching the list, meaning it will move down the list starting from your current position. All right, it might take a little It's a little time for each product because it actually has to communicate with the API service that is being used. Now, the primary, right now, as of today, the only API service that is being used is the SKU Grid, which, if you are familiar with SKU Grid, they work with it's a software that can pull supplier data from hundreds of different suppliers. So any suppliers that work with SKU Grid will work with this tool. For the future, I will perhaps also add some other things as well, but right now this is what it does. Okay, all the suppliers from SKU Grid and this particular data, which all comes from SKU Grid. Okay, now eventually, if you keep running this, it's going to stop at some point. All right, ideally you should not cancel in the middle of the process. I'm going to do that, but really ideally you shouldn't cancel it. You should let it keep going and just let it do its job, but I'm going to cancel it because I want to show you some other things. All right, so let's pretend that it just stopped on its own, which it will stop eventually. You will then click continue fetch and list. And by the way, the reason why it stops has to do with Google. Google has a time limit on macros, so the macro will stop. But if you come back to the product data fetcher, there's this other option, continue. Continue fetching. In fact, I'm going to cancel that because I want you to see something. What continue fetching will do is it will continue, but not from where you click. It will continue from wherever it last fetched. So the last fetch was here, right? This was the last product. So when you click, so you could be all the way at the top. When you go to continue fetching, you're going to see that it will actually continue to fetch from where it left off. Once you click continue fetching, just give it a moment. And again, remember, I clicked all the way up at the top, but you're going to see that it's going to continue fetching from row 18. Just have to give it a moment. And there it is. Now this item was removed, so it's going to say item is removed. But you can see that it actually continued fetching from row 18. Automatically, it remembers where it left off, and that is really the big difference with this tool and things and macros that I've made on other systems in the past. Okay, now there is more to this. This process continue will also stop eventually because of the time limit. It will stop. Okay, so I'm going to let it go a little further. I'll let it do maybe a couple more, and then I'm going to hit cancel on this. Okay, so I just canceled that process, and that would have stopped on its own, but it would have taken a lot longer to stop. But let's just say it did stop. Well, there's something else you can do. And by the way, you don't have to wait for it to stop. You have what's called schedule continue fetching. Schedule continue fetching allows you to set a time. It allows you to set it to fetch automatically. And it will continue and keep fetching until it gets to the last URL. And it does this using something that's built-in part of Google Sheets, which are called triggers, which I'll show you what that is. So to schedule the fetching, what you do is you click on schedule continue fetching. Wait for that to run, and it will explain to you what that means. You are setting up a process for the sheet supplier products list. That's the name of the sheet. This process will start fetching now at the current row and continue every n minutes that you set, meaning n meaning whatever your number is. Do not schedule more than one process at a time, as it will cause overlapping. So don't do this twice, just do it once. You only need to schedule one continue process. This may lead to surpassing the rate limit. So if you have like two of these running at the same time, they're going to run over each other and it's going to do too much basically in a short time, and that could cause you to go over the rate limits. And it's just not going to help because it doesn't do more than one row at a time. Okay, so what you do here is you enter the number of minutes. Now you can put, you can do say 10. Here's the thing, you have to give it enough time to finish. So whatever it's doing right now, you have to give it enough time to finish that process first before it continues. All right. So it's kind of hard to demonstrate this because you'd have to sit here and actually wait. I'm going to put in 1 and click OK. That means 1 minute. You shouldn't use 1 minute because that's too short, right? If the process starts 1 minute later, it's still going to be running, so it should not start every minute. All right. It's better to use maybe 15, 30, something like that. In fact, you might not even be able to enter 1 minute. I might have it set where you can't do that, okay? Because it's too short. 1 minute is too short. But just for demonstration, I'm using 1 minute, and I'm going to show you something on extensions, app script. Okay, I'm going to show you, and we're on this one because I want you to see the code. This is the code that you're going to copy into the sheet to make it work. I have a lot of other things going on here because I'm testing things, but you're going to copy this code, okay, to make it work. And I'm going to click on triggers. I want you to see that this is the continue fetching. It's what's called a trigger. You can actually do this manually with add trigger. And if I were to click this button, you will see that it says continue fetching, and it says time driven, minutes every minute. Okay. All right. And I'm just going to cancel because I'm not changing it. Okay. If you go here to executions, it will show you what is currently running, and you can see the continue fetching is running right now. It's been running for 41 seconds. So when you go to the sheet, you're going to see, wow, look at that. It's actually running. Remember, I had stopped it before, so this was automatic. It started on its own, right? Every minute it's going to start doing this on its own. Okay, now what I'm actually going to do, however, is I'm going to stop it because it's going to start every minute, and that's too often. So what I'm going to do is product data fetcher, stop all fetching. All right. In fact, I'll show you both. First, stop current fetching. Stop current fetching will stop whatever's fetching right now. It will stop that fetching process right now of whatever's being fetched. Okay, but sometimes it might go on just a little bit past the time you press the button if it's in the middle of a loop. But that's what that does. You see, it just stopped it from fetching any more products. But that every minute start is still in there. So what's going to happen, I'm going to go back. I really want to show you this so you can understand this. Okay, I'm going to refresh. And you don't have to go in here necessarily, but it's good to understand what's happening here. You can see I stopped the fetching here. And now continue fetching has started again. Do you see that? It's running, continue fetching. Okay, it's running. So it just started fetching again on its own. It just started back up because of that 1 minute trigger. Well, what I want to do now is not only do I want it to stop it from fetching right now, I want to get rid of this every minute fetching that it's doing right now. Okay, so I'm going to go to product data fetcher, stop all fetching, which will terminate or end the current and the scheduled fetches that I set up. So you click stop all fetching. Not only will it stop the current fetching, it's going to stop the fetching that I set for each minute, which again, each minute is too often. You don't need to start a new fetch every minute because the fetch will run longer than a minute. Okay, maybe 15 minutes would have been better. All right. It really depends. It just really depends, but really actually depends on how long it takes for this thing to stop. All right, so but I'm going to say to be safe, about 15. Okay, now so by stopping all fetching, now I have removed the trigger. So when you go back here to trigger, you're going to see that that continue fetching, that every minute process that I had set is gone. Okay, so that is how you schedule the fetching process to continue every so many minutes, and that is also how you cancel it. Now this is really interesting. I just added this. which is the loop fetch. Loop fetch is going to actually set itself up, set the sheet up so that it will fetch the whole sheet from top to bottom every number of hours. So basically, when you click this, it will be just like the other thing, the continue, but you're going to enter the number of hours. Now, you have to keep in mind, Google has certain 24-hour limits. So although technically, yes, you can enter either 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, or 12. This is Google's trigger settings for hours. Okay, this is what they allow. These are the numbers Google allows. These are not, I didn't come up with these numbers. But you should think about how often do you really need it to fetch your whole sheet. Okay, if you don't need it to do it every hour, then don't do it, because what's going to happen is you might go over the limit if you have a long sheet. Okay, there's a limit of how long it can run automatic macros. Remember, these macros are going to run automatically on their own. Okay, every hour or every 2 hours. That might be too often where you might go over the limit. So maybe you want to go with like 12 hours, right? Every half a day, it will start at the top and it will keep fetching and continue until it reaches the bottom of your list, right? And then it will stop, and then 12 hours later, it will start that process again. So every 12 hours from when it started, okay? Or maybe you want to do like 8 hours, something like that. That way you're not as likely to go over, because you're not, because remember, it's a 24-hour limit. So that way, you're not doing so much every 24 hours, maybe 8 hours. Okay. You will have to kind of try that out. Now, this is something I definitely can't really show you right now, but if I put 1 hour, just for demonstration, but again, I suggest you put a larger number. Okay. I'm just doing this for right now. You're going to see when I go to triggers, I might have to reload it though. You're going to see this loop fetch, and if I go to edit trigger, you're going to see what it does, and that is every hour. Okay, that's really the most I can show you, because I can't have in this video have you sit and wait 1 hour to see that it's going to start in an hour, right? And even if I turn off the video and I start again, what does that really prove? Okay, so that's something you will have to do yourself to experience that feature for yourself. So there is one thing that I forgot to mention earlier in the video, which is that when you are setting the columns for your sheet, there may be certain columns that you don't want to use. And you don't have to use all of these columns, and I'm going to show you how to not use certain columns or not include certain columns. Now, the row number where your headings are, you must provide that. This is how it will know where the top of your sheet is. So you have to provide the row number where your headings will be, which is 1 in this case. However, you don't necessarily have to, and also the source URLs, you have to tell it where the URLs are, which is column A. However, nothing else has to be included. For instance, the column letter that will store the product titles. You don't have to include the titles. If you don't want the title, for instance, you could put the number 0 here, and it will not include the title. So anything that you don't want, you just enter 0 for that particular thing and click OK. So any question that comes up for that column, of the column letter that you need for that column, that you want for that column, just put 0 if you don't want to use that particular column. So I'm going to cancel that process. Now, in conclusion, I just want to say, check the video for more details, because things can change from time to time. In fact, the best thing you can do, especially if a lot of time has passed since this date of March 21st, when I actually finished this video and put it out, you might want to contact me directly to find out what is going on with this tool right now and what you need to do in order to use this tool and to be a user. And that will be the best thing to do rather than me telling you right now in this video. So I am Mr. Mark. You just contact me. Again, see the description of this video or the post or whatever, wherever this video is located. And I look forward to hearing from you.